What a game, my friend. Rangers marched into their dump and dominated the first half. Nicholas Raskin was an absolute beast. A goal, an assist, bossing the midfield like he owned the place, and Butland pulling off massive saves. We came back after the break, conceded a silly goal, but this is Rangers. This is a team that fights until the very end. And just when it looked like it was slipping away after their equalizer, who steps up? Igameni, coming on late and smashing in the winner to shut them up. 3-2 victory at Celtic Park, and their entire crowd silenced by 2,500 of our own. This is Rangers. We are the people. And now let's dive into today's news. We've got Chris Sutton making an absolute fool of himself. Celtic sneaking around, trying to tap up players. And the 49ers takeover saga that could shape our future. Want to see these and more Rangers news? Stay until the end. Did you hear what that clown Chris Sutton said before the game? 8-0 at halftime. 8-0. The level of delusion from that man is beyond belief. He stood there live on Sky Sports, chest puffed out, thinking he was being clever, and now he's watching Rangers march into Celtic Park and absolutely school his beloved lot 3-2 in their own back garden, and all Sutton can do now is sit there and eat his words. This is the guy who loves nothing more than running his mouth about Rangers, constantly trying to wind us up, only to be humiliated time and time again. It's a beautiful sight. Sutton talking nonsense before the game, and then Rangers shutting him and the rest of them up where it actually matters. On the pitch, Barry Ferguson's team went in there and proved exactly why the likes of Sutton fear Rangers getting their act together. Because when we do, Celtic cannot handle it. Their fans spent the whole week convinced this was going to be a walk in the park, and now it's their worst nightmare unfolding in front of them. Where's Sutton now? Will he come out and own up to talking absolute rubbish? Or will he do what Celtic fans do best when they're losing, pretend it never happened, and hope everyone forgets? Well, what a surprise. Celtic, once again, absolutely terrified of Rangers fans inside their own ground, denying entry to the Union Bears. It's almost as if they knew they couldn't handle the noise, the energy, the sheer presence of a proper support that backs their team no matter what. Let's be honest, this is a club that thrives in its own little bubble. They love nothing more than a home fixture with no opposition fans to challenge their fragile atmosphere. But the second Rangers supporters are in the building, panic stations, and yet even after all their efforts to keep the Bears away, they still couldn't stop 2,500 Rangers fans from turning up and making themselves heard. 2 hours before kickoff, Ibrox's finest had already turned a section of that stadium into something resembling a proper football ground. Imagine the fear in the Celtic dressing room, knowing they weren't going to have their usual one-sided backing. Barry Ferguson and James Tavernier know exactly what that backing means. The moment Rangers players see their own supporters in the stands, it lifts them, it gives them that extra push, that extra bit of fight that turns a tough away day into a battle worth winning. Celtic know this, which is exactly why they've spent years trying to kill the atmosphere by blocking Rangers fans from entering their stadium altogether. They know that when this fixture is played in a proper environment, one where both sets of fans can go toe-to-toe in the stands, Rangers thrive. And let's not forget, this came after Rangers had been battling in Europe just days before. But this club has never made excuses. While others crumble under pressure, Rangers rise to the occasion. Celtic fans, meanwhile, spent the build-up crying about their so-called brilliant side being tested by a real Rangers performance. Now let's ask the big question: why are Celtic so desperate to keep Rangers fans out of their ground? Is it because they can't handle the noise? Or Is it because they know their team shrinks when faced with the reality of a proper away support? Celtic up to their usual underhanded tricks, lurking in the shadows, whispering in players' ears, bending the rules while the authorities turn a blind eye, tapping up? Wouldn't put it past them for a second. It's the Celtic way. If they can't produce their own talent, they resort to sneaky backroom dealings, pulling strings in the background while pretending to be the so-called moral club of Scottish football. Give me a break. Lennon Miller is exactly the kind of player Rangers should be snapping up. A young Scottish talent with all the attributes to thrive in royal blue. The boy has shown his quality already, and you can bet he'd develop into a top-class midfielder under the right guidance. But here we are again, potentially watching another top talent slip away because Celtic are making their move while Rangers hesitate. It's infuriating. Derek Ferguson is absolutely spot on. Rangers have been guilty in the past of not acting quickly enough when it comes to homegrown talent. How many times have we seen promising young Scots end up at other clubs while we sit on our hands? And now, with Miller attracting attention from abroad, we run the risk of losing him altogether. But let's be honest, if he ends up at Celtic, we all know how it happened. More of their typical dodgy backroom dealings. And let's not pretend for a second that Miller would be in safe hands over there. How many young Scottish players have actually flourished at that club? They talk a big game about developing talent, but the truth is they'd rather stockpile a bunch of cheap signings from overseas and leave Scottish prospects to rot on the bench. If Miller makes the mistake of heading to the east end of Glasgow, he might as well write off the next few years of his career. Meanwhile, Rangers have at least made a move for Lyle Cameron, which is a step in the right direction. But let's be real, Miller is a different level. This is the type of signing that could make a real difference. And yet here we are, potentially losing him to either Celtic's underhanded tactics or the lure of a move abroad. But let's ask the real question here. If Celtic have tapped up Miller, where's the action from the authorities? If Rangers had been the ones doing this, you'd have the usual media circus foaming at the mouth, demanding investigations, punishments, and who knows what else. But when it's them, silence. Funny how the rules always seem to apply differently depending on the badge, isn't it? Right, let's cut through the noise. This so-called snag in the 49ers takeover is nothing but a minor technicality, and let's be honest, if Leeds do their job and get promoted, it's a non-issue. But even if they don't, do you really think a rule in the English Football League is going to stop Rangers from moving forward? No chance. The people involved in this deal are serious operators. They're not about to let some bureaucratic red tape derail their plans. And let's talk about what this means for Rangers. We're talking about a group with deep pockets and an elite sporting mentality coming in to take charge of Ibrox. Compare that to Celtic, where they're still clinging to their outdated model, scraping the bottom of the bargain bin for cheap signings and hoping nobody notices. Their squad is built on sand. Meanwhile, Rangers are looking at a future with proper investment, real ambition, and a structure that could put us miles ahead of them. Barry Ferguson's got the team fighting right now, and the big question is, does he get the full-time job? Or do we see a return for Steven Gerrard, the man who broke Celtic's spirit and stopped their so-called dominance dead in its tracks? Either way, the future at Ibrox is looking bright, while the other lot across the city are nervously watching this unfold, knowing they could be in serious trouble if we get this right. And let's just ask the big question here. If it were Celtic in this position, would there even be a discussion about rule changes? Or would the authorities be bending over backwards to accommodate them, just like they always do? If you haven't seen yesterday's video yet, you're missing out. Explosive news about Rangers that'll leave every fan stunned. Go check it out now.